Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. Today's episode is going to be, I hope, a very interesting one. The title is Astral Return to Spider Planet. Before I get into it, just want to let anyone know if you'd like to join Astral Club as a Patreon member or a patron of Astral Club. All you have to do is go to the description, and there is a link there to Patreon, and you can join Astro Club as a supporter of this channel. And those people are very important. And a couple things: you get the videos early every week. I send them on Tuesday or Wednesday, and you also get a direct email to me through Patreon, and I do my best to help out and give you the best answers and support that I can. Okay, let's get started. Now, if you recall, going back now 9 or 10 months, I made a video, the title of which was Reliving an Alien Past Life. Through astral projection, as we have talked about frequently, you can gain a variety of experience. You can gain a variety of information that isn't otherwise available, reachable, accessible to the average individual. In one particular instance, I was able to learn 4 different pre-life memories right before this one, where I was able to describe meeting my father and my mother and introducing them and visiting my mother before I was born and then rushing to the hospital. Other experiences included the one that was the subject of reliving an alien past life. In that past life, I was a primitive insect-type creature that probably had the level of intelligence as human ancestors did before we mastered fire. We had a group tribal type intelligence. We were self-aware, but that's about as far as it went. And that lifetime taught me a number of things, one of which was comradeship and mutual support. Now, that was on an alien planet. That was not on Earth. I recall just from some of the images. And just to, I'll have a link to that old video as well in case you want to review it. But real briefly, what happened, I recall the life where I was this moth-like type creature. We were about 3 to 4 feet tall, lean. I think our heads were probably about the size, somewhere around a chimp's brain case, I would think. As I said, we were about 3 to 4 feet tall, which is about 1 to 1.2 meters. And on this planet was kind of a jungle planet, as I recall, and we were quite happy. We went about, flying about, trying to find various nectar, and there was all kinds of fruit and trees everywhere. However, there was always an ever-present danger, and that was these spider-like creatures that if they caught you, they drain you, and that would be the last your tribe would ever see of you again. I detailed the experience in this video where we had this right of adulthood. In order to earn the right to mate, you had to prove your strength, your flying ability, your courage. And what we would do is we would migrate from the jungle areas of the planet where we lived to a northern area that was much more arid and craggy. And whereas the hunters, as we referred to them, were normally scattered throughout the planet, around that time of year, they seemed to understand what was going to happen, much like the African crocodiles gather together in certain rivers when they know the stampedes are going to be crossing these rivers. They know, and they're ready. These creatures would gather together, and they would spin their nets across these big crags. And what we had to do is fly at high speed through these nets slash webs and break through and fly away. And by doing that, we proved that we had been successful and that we were worthy of mating. And as I recall, the females were off somewhere watching us. Well, everything went well for the first couple guys, but then the guy who was right before me lost his courage in mid-flight. He tried to brake and pull up, but he didn't make it. And since he didn't have enough speed to get through the web, he got caught. I was right behind him, so I slammed into him, and we both got entangled. And the last thing I saw was the jaws of one of the hunters biting into me, and that's the last that I remembered. And this was an ancient, probably, who knows, maybe 1 billion years ago. I don't know. Maybe, certainly, I would imagine millions. But this was on an alien planet, and this was an experience that I had. And to this day, I do not like blood-sucking creatures. And spiders are not one of my favorites in the world. So, I was astral projecting, and I wanted to experience an alien planet, and I thought about my old home, that lifetime, and I fixated on it, and I felt great speed. I blacked out, as often happens when there's long distance travel happening, whether it's distance or whether it's time. When I came to, I was a bit in awe, but also mystified. I was hovering above a large gaseous planet. And as I was looking around, the planet itself was lovely. It probably was, somewhere around the size of Saturn. I don't know. It's impossible to know. But it was white with these lovely blue swirling bands. And there was 3 different ones. There was one in the northern sector, one in the middle, and one in the southern sector. And it was quite beautiful. But I was puzzled because I don't see how, and I didn't sense any life below either there. So I just started flying around. I decided to circle around, and as I circled around this huge, beautiful gas giant, I saw it. I saw this green moon, which was my old home planet. It had to be. So I immediately aimed towards this large planet that I guess is classified as a moon because it's circling this large gas giant. And off in the distance, I could see a sun that looked not that different from ours. It also was a yellow sun, and based on its size, it probably was, somewhere around the same kind of distance that our soul sun is. So I couldn't wait. I descended down into the planet, and sure enough, it looked a lot like I remembered it. Although the colors look different, and maybe now because I'm looking at it through astral eyes, my memories were looking at it through this creature's eyes. This creature could see colors, but I'm not sure that it had full color vision. At any rate, it looked really lush and certainly very green. I flew about looking for signs of life, or maybe some old creatures like that I remembered. For instance, my old tribe. I couldn't find any though right away, but there was innumerous amounts of large, I call them trees. They may have been more fern-like, sort of like a large scaled up forest of ferns. That's probably a better term for them. And I imagine if I was someone who was an expert in that type of horticulture, I probably could explain a lot more about what I was seeing. So I flew about and I didn't see anything interesting. And then I started thinking about my old nemesis, those creatures, those bloodsuckers, those hunters. And as soon as I started thinking about them, it was like I was whisked away by this huge wind. And there I was hovering over the crags again. And down below, I saw some old webs that looked like they'd been kind of shop worn a little bit. But as I looked closer, I saw there was one of these little creatures skittering about, spinning its web. So I went down to take a look at it. And as I got closer, it didn't sense me. I was probably invisible to it because I was just in my typical astral body and I hadn't time traveled. So I was able to look at it fairly close up. It was repulsive as I remembered it, but it wasn't really a spider as much as it was a scaled up tick. I would say it was much more like a scaled up tick. It had 8 legs, but as I was looking it over, my fears from this lifetime, I think, impressed upon me the image of arachnids or spiders. But I believe ticks are actually arachnids, though. Anyway, aren't they? At any rate, it looked more like a tick to me. So I examined the creature. It certainly was ugly and it was skittering about. It had what appeared to be some sort of hard shell. I didn't get up too close to get a better look at it because I was still very repelled by this creature. And as I was watching, I could see some other of its friends starting to stretch out their strands as well. Now, these creatures, they were a brownish color with some peculiar white spotting on their abdomen, I guess. They were different patterns, so you could probably tell different creatures. And there may have been some sort of sexual difference too, but I have no way of knowing. And they were about 4 to 5 feet long, which is somewhere between 1.2 and 1.5 meters. And so I just recall them being so big. And it's probably because they were bigger than me, but certainly in my mind they were giants. And it reminds me of when I was in elementary school and we had this combination cafeteria, which would also become the gym floor after or before lunch. And I recall it seemed so large. But then years later, when I went to visit after I had been away for a few years, it looked so small. And I guess it hadn't changed, I had changed. And now I'm looking at it as someone who's used to being, close to 6 feet. So now they don't seem to be the giants that they once were in the back of my mind. But they were still ugly customers. So I flew upwards and continued to survey as they went about their little fiendish work below. And I was wondering whether somewhere there was a flock of my previous brethren getting ready to go through this whole ritual once more, or if these creatures were doing this for some other reason. Who knows? An idea came to me, and I wish I could say it was an idea born of extremely advanced spirituality on my part. I could, as a scientist, study these creatures from afar and not interfere. I could try to find some spiritual lesson from this. Or I could do what I ended up doing, and that was getting a little payback. So I hope you don't judge me too harshly, because this is what I did. I drew in as much energy as I could from this environment. And it was a highly charged environment. It was very windy going on through these crags. The nets below, or the webs below, were swaying back and forth, for instance. And there was something about these hot winds that were electrically charged. And it was invigorating just being there. But I started absorbing more and more and more of this energy. And I started taking on more and more physicality. As I did so, my body became denser. And I actually started sinking a little bit. I flew down to no more than 100 feet away from these creatures, and they saw me, and they started reacting to my presence. And I said, oh, okay, this is interesting. I went right back up again. Let's see, I was thousands of feet up, and I knew what I was going to do. I aimed myself into a missile. I was going to gain some payback here. I was going to get some revenge. I was going to prove my manhood. I was going to prove, maybe millions of years later, but I was going to prove that I could pass this test of courage and show these creatures who's boss. I aimed myself like a bullet and headed down to the center where the biggest, brownest, ugliest, blood-sucking giant tick and his little buddies were formed. And I whizzed through them going, I don't know, it's probably hard to say, 1,000 miles an hour? I don't know. I busted right through the center of them. There was little bits of brown flying everywhere and little bits of net flying everywhere. I mean, there had to be 50 of them just flying in every which way. Half of this one, half of that one. And as I got down towards the bottom of the canyon, I pulled up and I soared up and I looked down, and all I saw was a lot of ruination and a few survivors skittering about, wondering what the heck had just happened. So, as soon as I absorbed my victory, I found myself hovering after a moment of blackness over Earth once again. So that was my return, or my astral return to Spider Planet. And it's not the great philosophical or spiritual story that perhaps it could have been. But you know what? I feel a heck of a lot better. And I feel that everything's kind of square right now. And I have a lot less fear of those little creatures that I think I once did. So that was this week's episode. I hope you liked it. If you did, why don't you hit the like button? If you feel the need to share it with someone, share it. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you have subscribed, and I appreciate everybody who has. You guys are great. Hit that bell button. And continue to hit me up with those questions and answers and your comments. It's great. I also appreciate it when you help out your fellow Astral Club members, because I don't have all the answers. As you can see, I'm not some spiritual guru giant here. I have my good moments, but I have my other kind of moments as well. So don't be afraid to help one another out. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, that is this week's episode. And I'm Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.